quotes after a mild hiatus. I am back. I am going to uh, talk, about why I think, it was a good idea for, Donald Trump to, attack Iran. Uh, I'm going to talk about the baseball game today. First of all, the United States received a black eye in the world of baseball. The United States was expected to defeat Venezuela, but we lost. Yes, I can't believe it. The United States lost in a baseball game to Venezuela that they should have won for the World Baseball Classic. I'm not sure what exactly that means. It doesn't mean anything in terms of the World Series. It's not like um, they were just playing for prestige. Really, I don't know how much money they even. I'm not sure exactly like how much the players even got paid to participate in the WBC, but yes, the United States is out, and I'm very disappointed. I think it only happens every 4 years, so there's I can't say better luck next year. Next time, the players are going to be completely different. Like with this time, it was the last time. The last time there was a World Baseball Classic, Kevin Youkilis was in it, and he's been retired for a long time. So, you know, uh, yeah, but better luck next time for the United States. So let's talk about Trump bombing Iran. Um, you know, as of now, the United States has suffered about 100 serious injuries, uh, and some casualties, unfortunately. Um, my heart goes out to the troops that have lost their lives in the courageous defense of freedom. As we speak, there are United States stealth bombers combing over Iran looking for targets. The targets that they're looking for are regime targets. Um, Hopefully, the United States will be able to bomb the Iranian regime into submission. I just hope that the Iranian people have the wherewithal to rise up against their tyrants. Now, Trump is in the last phase of his presidency, and he has ignited controversy with ICE raids. A lot of people were furious over the fact that you know people got killed in ICE raids. I think that the people who protested ICE were actually provokers. I mean, I believe that um, uh, no, this is going to be the new Iranian flag in the future. Trump is going to uh, topple the brutal gang of murderers that occupy Iran. Um, um, yeah, and the Iranian flag might change. I don't mean to be disrespectful towards anyone, and it's an AI generated flag. I'm not telling Iranians which flag they should have actually. If you're Iranian and are offended by the lion on the flag, then I apologize for that. But I'm being somewhat. I'm using AI to illustrate what I think the scenario is, but I certainly apologize if you're offended. But all right, let's get back on track. Yes, Iran has been occupied by a radical apocalyptic theocracy in the form of the Ayatollahs from I think 1979. and they've plundered the country and ran it into the ground. Um, you know, they have aggravated. People say that Israel killed like 70,000 people in Gaza. That's true, but it's also true to say that Iran killed 70,000 people in Gaza because they aggravated the conflict to the point where Israel had no choice but to level the entire thing so their society could start over again without Hamas in order to bring back their hostages. I'm not sure that I agree with Israel's policy on Gaza. I think the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a complex issue, and it's not my intention to tell my audience where I think the borders should be or how to solve the conflict. I do, however, believe that the Iranian government has a lot of Palestinian and Lebanese blood on their hands. In addition, they've killed tens of thousands of people in Syria and in Yemen. I want the Iranian government to be overthrown, and I think that for Donald Trump to bomb Iran in the way that he is doing is the best move of his presidency. His the second term of his presidency has been marred in controversy. Donald Trump, I'm not an expert in the Epstein files, but he's mentioned in the Epstein files a lot. I don't know. It's like I don't know why or and I have no expertise in the Epstein files, but a lot of Trump's critics, point to him being mentioned in the Epstein files and see that as a sign that he is corrupt and might have known more about Jeffrey Epstein's operation than he is admitting to, and they might even say that Trump is using the Iran war as a distraction from the Epstein scandal. I don't think that's true. What problems are there with the Iranian war that the United States and Israel is prosecuting now? Well, it might not work. I don't know that a month-long bombing campaign is really going to do anything to topple the Iranian government. I do not. I'm just not sure what the end game is. Uh, the American people have no will to conquer Iran, unfortunately. We, Despite the fact that the Iraq War was a huge success, America suffered immensely because of it in the form of political divisions and loss of life. I mean, the Iraq War will forever go down in history as as the war that divided America. America is an extremely divided society. The term United States, in my opinion, I think is like a misnomer. It's more like the divided states, of America. I'm beginning to think that America is too big to govern. So, yeah, let's get back to the Iran war. What and why I think it's a good idea for Trump to do this because Iran supplied Russia with drones that were used to terrorize Ukraine. The Shahid drones killed people while they were in their apartment buildings. I want to take revenge for that. I think that it's good to see the Ukrainians lending support to all of the victims of the Iranian terroristic counter response. How many women do I support financially? None. All my women are independent. I do not support women any group of women financially. I don't own a business, so yeah, I'm an independent guy. A German guy thinks he knows about the United States. I live in the United States. I'm part German, but I do not live in Germany, and I think that's obvious by my accent. I speak with a Yonkers, New York accent. I'm not from Germany, but I'm more Irish actually than I am German. Uh, I'm an expert on the United States politics because I've lived it here all my life, and I think that the Iranian war is going to serve as a vehicle that divides America even further. Do I think that divisions in a society are innately bad or wrong? No. I mean, I think societies can function that are bitterly divided along sectarian lines. I mean, I would hope that the divisions don't cause violence, but I mean, it seems like in America, every time there's a controversy, you have something like the George Floyd riots or the Capitol siege. So I do fear what's on the horizon. You know, Democrats in New York City want to, they say that they want to help, you know, the poor by taxing, you know, estates that are worth over 700 grand. I mean, I think that's, a very stupid thing to do because in New York City, you cannot purchase a house for like less than 700 grand. I think that Mandami's taxes are all just, power grabs on his part. I mean, what Mandami's taxes illustrate is that um, uh, that Democrats have no plan to really help America besides destroying the middle class. I mean, the Democratic Socialists do not believe that anybody should be able to leave their house to their kids. They think everybody should be homeless and that the government, should be in charge of redistributing wealth. They believe that ballooning the size of the government and shrinking the private sector is the answer. That's something I flat out reject. I think we need more policemen. There's hysteria in America about the police. Democrats use this hysteria every time there's an election coming on, drawing on the horizon in order to scare people into voting for them. The latest thing is that Democrats don't want AI to read your license plate. It shouldn't bother you if having AI read your license plate should not bother you unless you are a criminal. That's why I don't vote Democrat. If you listen to me long enough, you'll find that I criticize Republicans a lot as well. I mean, Republicans want a theocracy. They've in Texas, I don't recommend having an abortion, but ultimately, I am apprehensive about total bans on abortion, and that's what that's what Republicans have done in Texas. They've turned it into a theocracy. They're teaching the Bible in public schools. I think that's a recipe for a disaster. I do not believe that I don't believe that the public school system should be a venue for preaching the Bible. I believe that, or any other holy text. In public schools, I think you should study science. I think in public schools, the Bible should be the James Webb Space Telescope. We ought to encourage students to gaze out at the cosmos and come to their own conclusions as to whether or not they believe the universe was created by a God or not. I say that as a Roman Catholic. I mean, I'm not an atheist, but it really bothers me that um, you know certain evangelical Christians want to use the Bible in the public school system, and the ironic thing is that I think that that will actually hurt them more. Christianity was founded by a group of rebels against the establishment. What the Texas GOP wants to do is make Christianity the establishment and the oppressor, and I think that what the Texas GOP should learn that is, when religion gets into the government, people turn against religion. That's the point I'm trying to make. And yeah, so back to Iran, I think it's the best move of Trump's presidency. I believe that Trump wasted a lot of his time saying that he was going to be the peace president. What I resent about Trump is that he didn't give enough weapons to Ukraine. I think Ukraine was sold out by Republicans who should have followed in the example of Ronald Reagan and called and labeled Russia as the Russians as the violent whims of an evil empire. The- I think Reagan's best quote about Russia is that countries on the periphery suffer by the violent whims of an evil empire. Russia is uh, a slaughterhouse of people and has been since Putin invaded Georgia. The Russians have committed uh, atrocities in every country they've invaded, and they throw their own, you know, journalists out the window. Okay, so yeah, the Texas GOP wanted the Ten Commandments in the halls of the schools. One reason why I don't believe that the Ten Commandments should be displayed in the halls of the schools is that not all of the students are monotheists. The Ten Commandments say that you can't have any God besides me, but there's going to be Hindus in the school. You're going to have Native American pagans, and I am just apprehensive about the Texas GOP wanting to push the evangelical Christian theocracy because in the public schools, because I don't think that that's the appropriate thing to do. I am okay with vouchers, however. I think that if people where I agree with the Republicans on education and maybe with the Texas GOP a little bit here is that I think parents should have the option to send their kids to religious oriented schools if they want. Like I spent some time in the Catholic school system as a kid. I don't, in a perfect world, I would say that you know um, the Catholic school system should be eligible for vouchers just like the public school system receives funding. I mean, the good thing about having specific schools, one good thing about having the voucher system would be that parents who want their kids to receive a religious education could afford to send their kids to religious schools. But I definitely think that the public school system should be secular. I am dead set against putting up religious documents in the public schools. And that's coming from somebody who's not an atheist. I just believe, I don't trust evangelical Christians in the South to respect the separation of church and state. I mean, I respect them, and I vote with them more than I vote with the Democrats. I mean, I see the Democrats as basically being people who like to shut down the government in order to scare people. I mean, they're just Democrats are just a bunch of bullies. Uh, um, I find that the opposition to ICE that the Democrats, all support is completely ridiculous. I mean, I do not understand why Democrats, make a romanticization out of people who provoke ICE violence. None of the ICE agents who have killed an American are in jail. So, I mean, it does seem like they were defending themselves. If people wouldn't, obstruct ICE's ability to operate, there wouldn't be a reason for ICE to retaliate. Um, I mean, I'm not saying I support all of the immigration rates. I don't think that, we should send, kids back. I don't think they should be applied in a draconian sense, but it does seem to me like, Mexico is abetting a human trafficking, operation across the border. When when we learn that, yeah, there's 600,000 and growing of undocumented citizens in America, I think you have to be uh, suspect. I mean, of whether or not we should really, you know, have an open borders policy. Yeah, it's based on Christian values. It's not. I think putting up the Ten Commandments in public schools is a veiled attempt at promoting evangelical Christianity in what should be a secular public school system. I mean, it doesn't really bother me that much, to tell you the truth. It's not something, it takes a lot to get me angry, and ultimately, I'm not really that offended by having the Ten Commandments in the public schools. I would say, however, that I think it's kind of silly. It's just not like the type of thing I would do. Well, first of all, I mean, Christians follow the New Testament. I mean, the Ten Commandments was given in the Old Testament to the Jews. So I think actually that's more relevant to them than it is to the Christians, ironically. I mean, the Christians, don't want to put up a crucifix in, you know, the public schools, because they obviously understand that that would be too much of a violation of the separation of church and state. But ultimately, I'm not offended by the Ten Commandments in the public schools. I just don't think it's necessary. Um, and I do believe that the Texas GOP is pushing, Texas towards a theocracy that's not going to benefit them in the future. The Texas GOP better make sure they don't alienate, um, too many people, because they might turn Texas into a blue state. And that's also my concern. If Republicans lose Texas, I don't care about how New York and California vote as a Republican, because they're never going to vote red. But Texas is, uh, yeah. So Texas is the uh, the only stronghold Republicans have, and for them to ruin their opportunities there because of a GOP that is too extreme to the right, I think would be tragic. No, well, Texas will stay red, sir. No, it might not. Yeah, look at the poll numbers. I think that I definitely believe that New York and California will never turn red, but no, I think Texas is in trouble, for the Republicans, and that doing things like, I mean, a total ban, on abortion, which is what they have in Texas. I don't know how much it gets enforced. Um, I assume that there's lots of doctors, providing, abortions in Texas, under the radar. And then again, I'm not encouraging to have an abortion. I am personally pro-life, but for the Republicans to, institute an all-out ban on abortion in Texas, I think that that's a mistake. And because I think it's going to explode on them in the public opinion polls one day during an election, and I think that they're going to regret that they did it. I mean, obviously, you know, I mean, Republicans, seek to ban abortions, stating that they're, advancing, Christian values, but you know, forgiveness is a Christian value also, and you don't want, women dying of botched procedures, in the back alleys. Yeah, it's a tough issue, however, and I recommend against having an abortion. I don't believe in it. Believe in that that's an acceptable. I don't think it's the optimal decision. However, I don't. I'm leaning against support for totally banning, abortion in the way that it happened in Texas. All right, so let's get back to Iran and Israel. It's interesting that, Israel gets labeled as a terrorist state when Israel uses precision munitions to target Iran. And when Iran attacks Israel, they use cluster bombing over densely populated cities like Tel Aviv. On the, we don't know how many. We know today that Larijani lost was assassinated by Israel, and that Iran responded by launching cluster bombs over Tel Aviv. But we don't know how many Israelis unfortunately lost their lives, because Israel censors all of the information about the bombings. Some people uh, say that Israel is receiving billions of dollars in damages to their skyscrapers in Tel Aviv, and they're jailing people who report on it. I mean, I think it's a good idea for Israel to jail people who report, who who tell the Iranians essentially how accurate their projectiles are. Um, but yeah, the Iran war is interesting because neither side is stating how successful or unsuccessful they are. The United States might have lost the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln, I think, but they're not saying it. Benjamin Netanyahu had to release a proof of life video because there are fake AI videos of Netanyahu that show pretend that he's assassinated. The title for the next Avengers movies is Secret Wars. I think that the American Israeli Arab attack on Iran qualifies as a secret war. Dubai does not want to publish to the world how much damage is being done to their skyscrapers. Oh, yeah, Dubai is finished, in my opinion. Um, Iran decided that it was a good idea to send drones into luxury hotels in Dubai. I'm not publishing secrets. The- i- I get my information from the Drudge Report. Yes, and so Iran, is la- launching missiles and drones into high-end resorts in Dubai. I think that Dubai is no longer going to be a tourist attraction. Eh, why would you want to spend time in a country that is a target for missiles from Iran? I wouldn't. Those missiles can kill you, you know, at the drop of a hat. If when the war dies down in 6 months, it's not going to be safe to visit next year. You're not going to be able to take pictures of the buildings that imploded because it's a secret police state. Yes, and that's would you be a Gen Xer? Oh yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people believe that Benjamin Netanyahu is turning the world against Israel. I'll grant you that much. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu understands he's a controversial figure, and it seems to me like a lot of Jews, like Natalie Portman, doesn't like Benjamin Netanyahu. That's not a secret. So, uh, I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu really makes people dislike Israel. However, I think that the critics of Israel, are often just like the enemies of civilization. But that being said, the Palestinian-Israeli issue is a complex issue that I don't really understand that much, and I think it's important that people who defend Israel's right to exist also emphasize that they feel sympathy for Palestinians that end up getting maimed in all of the horrific wars, that end up breaking out because of this disputes about the Holy Land. Um, it's a complex issue. I just believe that the Iranian regime must be toppled because uh, you know, they're just a bunch of barbarians. They incited I mean, Iran has incited tensions between not only the Israelis and the Palestinians. The Iranians have killed hundreds of thousands of people in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. It is time for the Iranian regime to disappear. And I think that for Donald Trump and Netanyahu to bomb the Iranian regime, into the Stone Age is actually a good idea. A good idea. My prob the qualms I have about Trump's, attack on the Iranian regime is that it might not work. It might just it might make the Iranian regime even more dangerous. Yeah, and now we're seeing uh, high gas prices. We're going back to the days of the Bush administration when the gas prices were exorbitant during the Iraq War. Uh, the war in Ukraine is raging. Already, I saw some Twitter talk that the Europeans will help Trump open the Strait of Hormuz if Trump gives the Europeans weapons to fight the Russians in Ukraine. Um, this war isn't going away anytime soon. Cuba is going to be next to fall. Um, uh, the Cuban president Miguel. Oh, I agree that the Iranian people are not barbarians. I don't. I mean, the Iranian people were slaughtered viciously by their regime because they had the audacity to demand a democracy. I believe that Iranian people are civilized, and I respect Iranian Muslims in particular. I'm not when I lash out against extremist theocrats in the government. I'm not in any way lashing out at Shia Muslims. That's definitely something I would want you to know. I have no problem, with Islam. I am not one of these people. I'm not one of these Republicans that i- is or conservatives that have a problem with Islam. That's not me. I want to see the Iranian people rise up and topple their regime. Yes, people make a big deal in this chat about the background that I created with Grok. It's satirical. I'm not being disrespectful towards the Iranians and their flag. I'm trying to uh, generate, clickbait. I want people to click on my channels. Click on this channel and on Drone Thrust. Yes, go to my other channel at Drone Thrust. Please, I need subscribers and watch time there. But I'm definitely going to do more videos on the controversial quotes this year. I realized that this is my this is where I get the most you know viewership on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, the Iranian regime is they're a bunch of extremists, and they should. What about starving Cuba for energy? Take it. Yeah, I think we should conquer Cuba. I think Cuba should be the 51st state. If Cuba were the 51st state, then America's GDP would increase exponentially and Cubans would do better. So, yes, I say let Cuba be the 51st state. I'm all for expanding the South to Cuba. I think even Venezuela. I mean, Venezuela impressed me in the World Baseball Classic, so we could take Cuba could be the American South could extend all the way to Caracas. There was a movement, in the 1930s called Technocracy America that wanted America to push all the way to Venezuela. They were an extremely controversial group. I don't think I agree with much of what they said, but I think that their idea, they wanted to establish an entity called the North American Technate. Yes, the North American Technate was supposed to extend from Canada all the way into the Caribbean, like say as far as Venezuela, yeah, and Greenland, of course. I think that that's a good idea. I do believe that America needs to get bigger in the future in order to be able to compete against China and Russia. Plus, economically speaking, I think America could use an absorption of Cuba and Venezuela into our GDP system. Now, of course, if America took over Cuba and Venezuela, you'd have to let them have their own elections, and they would be able to elect the governors. But I definitely think that Cuba should assess to the United States. I mean, could you? I would love to watch the Formula One Grand Prix of Havana. That would be fun. I mean, Cuba could have like five baseball teams. uh, uh, well, why not? Yeah, well, why not let Cuba become part of America? So yeah, what other controversies are there on the internet? Let me see if I could switch my green screen. No, I don't want to do that. Yeah, I don't want to switch my green screen because it brought up a whole bunch of other images that I don't want to broadcast on this channel. All right, so yes, but also on the internet, if you want a controversial quotes channel, if you want to study controversy on the internet, look at the Scientology rebuttal channels. Look at Aaron Smith Levin. Look at Blown Up for Good. Look at the Scientology audit. Scientology is receiving its moment of it's Scientology is at a critical juncture. I don't think that the critics of Scientology or Scientology even know what to do about the culture war that's been going on for the past 20 years over what Scientologists believe. There's more every day on YouTube. It's fascinating. There's another anti-Scientology video. Some of the anti-Scientology videos are produced by people who don't know how to criticize it and should be they should receive an F for poor effort and creating boring content. But yeah, so I mean, Aaron Smith Levin has been in the news. He's fractured with some of his former anti-Scientology uh, cohort. There's a big feud going on between him and Tony Ortega, and I think that the Scientologists are looking at that scenario and laughing. It does seem to me. Uh, No, I'm not. Look, we're going to talk Scientology. I love talking Scientology. It gets lots of hits, and obviously Aaron Smith Levin is a pioneer in the anti-Scientology movement. He's a controversial guy, however. He has two trials, one of which he was found not guilty, and he has another trial for an assault that was. There was some incident wherein the Scientologist is claiming that Aaron Smith Levin assaulted him with a door somehow. I don't know the specifics, but yes, ASL has another trial coming up. The Scientology protest movement has exploded online. It is very popular for people, uh, for YouTubers like me who can live stream to go in front of a Scientology building and start making fun of them. And what the way to get hits is if you could vertical live stream like me. If you have like over 1,000 followers, you get your cell phone stick and protest you and film yourself mocking the Scientologists as they go inside of their org. It's a rude thing to do, and sometimes the uh, confrontations between the protesters and Scientologists get very physical. If you look at Aaron Smith Levin's channel, you're going to see that he got in trouble for throwing powder at a Sea Org member. Unfortunately, he shouldn't have done that, but he had a trial and he was acquitted. But he has another trial coming up for attacking a Sea Org member with a door, and I can't wait to see how he does with that trial. Um, but his content, is always interesting. I mean, he does a very good job at making fun of Scientology. And I think Scientology deserves a shellacking. I think they've gotten away with way too much for way too long. They use the Super Bowl to promote, misinformation about everything from psychiatry to uh, how to recover from being exposed to chemicals. They're a very bizarre group, and so yes, so, it is popular to be an anti-Scientologist. Um, so let's see if I could get another image in in the back of my. I want to see. All right, let's see what image I could get. I want to see if I could find another image. All right, I'm just looking for another image. I don't think I could find one that I need. So, oh, okay. Here's a good image I could use for the back of my presentation. I just want to liven it up a bit. All right, so yeah, there's nothing in that image that's inappropriate. Yeah, you have to be careful when you cycle through your cell phone images, to post for a green screen. Yes, God bless Trump. I mean, I hope Trump succeeds in Iran. I really hope that the Iranian regime falls. I do think Iran would be an interesting country to visit if it were ruled over by a democracy. And I don't believe that Iranians are a bunch of barbarians. And I have no problem with the dominant religion in that country, Shia Islam. I don't favor the Shia over the Sunni or vice versa. I'm a Roman Catholic. I don't tell members of other religions which denomination to belong. That's an issue that comes up a lot when you discuss in relations with, Islam. Do you favor one group over the other? I don't. All right, so yeah, this is how many people were killed by the Iranians. So we're going to see that they killed 43,000 people and injured, 300,000 people. That's a graphic that I was able to retrieve on my cell phone off of Twitter. So I mean, it does seem to me like Trump is doing a good thing. It's good that Donald Trump is trying to help the Iranians overthrow their government. And um, no, I don't think the Iran won the war yet. I think it's too early to determine. Iran is going to face a revolution when the Americans and Israelis stop bombing. But that being said, the revolution might take longer than Netanyahu and Trump want it to take. Um, uh, you know, it's not easy to effectuate regime change by aerial bombardment. That strategy is something that historically I think doesn't work, and I am worried that the United States and Israel are going to run out of ammo. Yeah, if he sends troops, good. It would not bother me if Trump sent troops, into Iran. Okay, guys, thank you for tuning into this broadcast. I appreciate your viewership. Please visit dronethrust.com. Thank you for watching.